What is React? React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces, primarily for single-page applications. It allows developers to create reusable UI components that efficiently update and render when data changes. React uses a virtual DOM to optimize rendering performance, ensuring a smooth user experience. It was developed by Facebook and is widely used for building fast, interactive web applications. What are the advantages of React? Advantages of React: component-based architecture, encourages reusable and maintainable UI components. Virtual DOM improves performance by minimizing real DOM updates. Fast rendering uses efficient diffing algorithms for quick UI updates. Unidirectional data flow ensures predictable state management. Hooks simplifies state and lifecycle management in functional components. What is JSX? JSX, JavaScript XML, is a syntax extension for JavaScript used in React to write UI components more intuitively. It allows developers to write HTML-like code inside JavaScript, making it easier to build and visualize UI structures. JSX is then compiled into standard JavaScript using tools like Babel. What are components in React? Components in React are the building blocks of a React application. They are reusable, self-contained pieces of UI that can manage their own state and logic. React components can be of two types: functional components, simple JavaScript functions that return JSX class components, older method, use ES6 classes and lifecycle methods. What is the difference between functional and class components? Functional components in React are simple JavaScript functions that return JSX, while class components are ES6 classes that extend React.component. Functional components use hooks like useState and useEffect for state and lifecycle management, making them more concise and easier to read. In contrast, class components rely on this state and lifecycle methods like component didMount, leading to more boilerplate code. Functional components are also more performant because they avoid the overhead of class-based structures. With the introduction of hooks in React 16.8, functional components have become the preferred choice for modern React development. What are props in React? Props, short for properties, in React allow components to receive data from their parent components, making them dynamic and reusable. They are read-only and help maintain a unidirectional data flow, ensuring that child components cannot modify the received data. Props are passed as attributes in JSX and accessed inside the component using destructuring or props object. This makes React components flexible and customizable without changing their internal structure. What is state in React? State in React is a built-in object that allows components to store and manage dynamic data. Unlike props, which are read-only, state is mutable and can be updated using the useState hook in functional components or this setState in class components. When the state changes, React re-renders the component to reflect the updated data in the UI. State is used for handling user interactions, API responses, form inputs, and other dynamic behavior within a component. Explain lifecycle methods in React. In functional components, lifecycle methods are handled using the useEffect hook instead of traditional class-based lifecycle methods like component didMount, component didUpdate, and component willUnMount. The useEffect hook allows developers to run side effects such as fetching data, subscribing to events, or updating the DOM. It runs after the component renders and can be controlled using dependencies. When an empty dependency array is provided, it behaves like component didMount, running only once. If dependencies are included, it acts like component didUpdate, running when those values change. By returning a cleanup function inside useEffect, it mimics component willUnMount, ensuring resources are released properly. This makes functional components more concise and efficient in managing side effects. What are hooks in React? Hooks in React are functions that allow functional components to use state and lifecycle features without needing class components. The most common hooks are useState for managing state and useEffect for handling side effects like API calls. Hooks make code cleaner, reusable, and easier to maintain. What is the useState hook? The useState hook in React is used to add state to functional components. It returns an array with a state variable and a function to update it. It enables dynamic UI updates by triggering re-renders when the state changes. Syntax: const, state, set state, useState, initial value. What is the useEffect hook? The useEffect hook in React handles side effects in functional components like fetching data, subscriptions, or DOM updates. It runs after render and accepts a callback function. Dependencies in the second argument, DP, control execution, runs on mount if, on every render if omitted, and on depth change if DP provided. Cleanup is handled by returning a function. Syntax. How do you fetch data in React? In React, you can fetch data using the Fetch API or libraries like Axios, typically inside the useEffect hook, to fetch data on component mount. Example using fetch. What is the virtual DOM? The virtual DOM, VDOM, is a lightweight copy of the real DOM used in React to optimize rendering. Instead of directly modifying the real DOM, React updates the VDOM first, compares it with the previous version, diffing, and applies only the necessary changes to the actual DOM, reconciliation. This improves performance by reducing unnecessary re-renders and minimizing expensive DOM operations, making UI updates faster and more efficient. What is reconciliation? Reconciliation in React is the process of updating the DOM efficiently. When the state or props change, React creates a new virtual DOM, compares it with the previous one diffing, and applies only the necessary changes to the real DOM patching. This minimizes costly DOM updates, improving performance. React uses a key prop for efficient list updates, helping identify and update elements smartly. Explain keys in React lists. In React, keys are unique identifiers used in lists to help React efficiently update and re-render components. They help in reconciliation by identifying which items changed, were added, or removed. Using a stable key like an ID improves performance and avoids unnecessary re-renders. What is the Context API? The Context API in React provides a way to pass data like theme, user info, or language through the component tree without needing to pass props manually at every level, prop drilling. What is React Router? React Router is a library for handling navigation in React applications. It enables single-page applications, SPA, to have dynamic client-side routing without full-page reloads. Key features: declarative routing using and dot, dynamic URL parameters, nested routes, programmatic navigation. How do you optimize React application performance? To optimize React application performance, follow these best practices. Use React Memo. Prevent unnecessary re-renders by memoizing components. Use useCallback and useMemo. Optimize functions and computed values. Lazy loading with React.lazy and suspense. Load components only when needed. Code splitting with React Lazy and React Suspense. Reduce initial load time. Virtualization. Use libraries like React Window for large lists. Avoid unnecessary state updates. Keep state minimal and avoid redundant updates. Use production build. Run npm run build to optimize React for production. Optimize renders with keys. Use stable keys in lists to prevent unnecessary re-renders. Optimize images and assets. Use compressed images, lazy loading, and CDN. Avoid inline functions and objects in JSX. Move them outside to prevent re-renders. What is a higher order component, HOC? A higher order component, HOC, in React is a function that takes a component as input and returns a new enhanced component with additional props or logic. It is used for code reusability, logic sharing, and component abstraction. What are render props? Render props is a React pattern where a function is passed as a prop to a component, allowing flexible component logic sharing. Instead of inheritance or HOCs, it lets you reuse component logic dynamically. What are render props? A controlled component is a form element, input, text area, select, whose value is controlled by React state. Instead of storing the value in the DOM, React manages it via the useState hook, ensuring real-time synchronization between UI and state. Benefits, checkmark, single source of truth, checkmark, easier form, validation checkmark, better UI control. What are uncontrolled components? An uncontrolled component is a form element input text area select that stores its own state inside the DOM rather than being controlled by React state. Instead of using useState, you access the value via a ref, useRef. How do you handle events in React? In React, events are handled using camel case event handlers and functions. Instead of using inline HTML event attributes on click, React uses JSX event binding. Key points: use onClick, onChange, etc. in JSX. Pass event handlers as functions, not strings. Use event prevent default for form submissions. Use bind or arrow functions to handle this in class components. Blast off. What is prop types? Prop types is a built-in type checking mechanism in React that ensures components receive the correct prop types. It helps catch bugs by validating props at runtime. Benefits: check prevents unintended prop issues. Check improves code maintainability. Check provides runtime warnings in development.